What's up, core reporters, and welcome back to my channel. I was just listening to the most random podcast episode ever. So Farrah Abraham posted on her Instagram stories that she had appeared on a podcast called The Love Fix. And the episode that she was in is called Doing Deep Work, Surviving Trauma and Living Fearlessly with Farrah Abraham. If any of you guys want to check it out, it is only like 30 minutes long. So it's not really like a big ask or anything like that. If you guys are into like shorter things, you're not really podcast people or whatever, it's not the longest thing. And one thing that's quite surprising about this episode is that Farrah came across incredibly coherent, which is not something that I'm used to saying about this woman. She typically speaks in a word salad sort of format, but it seems like whatever work she had done in a treatment center is working for her in terms of being articulate. There still are some certain things that stuck out to me in this interview that made it seem like she still hasn't really learned much of a lesson about certain things in life, but it definitely seems as though she is working on being more of an eloquent speaker, which I do definitely applaud her for. So she talks about a lot of things in this podcast episode, including making a return to television. She didn't reveal too much information about what the show was going to be called or what it was going to be about or anything like that. But in the beginning of the podcast, the host presented as a show featuring a bunch of women who are powerful women, strong women, or something like that. And that could mean pretty much anything in life. So just take that with a grain of salt. I guess all it just means is that it's a bunch of women. But I want to know what it is that they're doing. Are they kind of working on healing themselves? Are they just sharing their day-to-day lives? Are they, you know what I mean? Like it could be a whole bunch of things. Are they completing challenges? Who knows? But there was a couple of things that Farrah really mentioned in this interview that stuck out to me as well, such as how she dealt with a lot of stuff over the years that left her feeling suicidal. And she says that that feeling stemmed from her being quote unquote attacked in Los Angeles. And when I mentioned earlier that there are still some things that Farrah is missing, this is what I'm referring to, because she is, in my opinion, misrepresenting what happened to her that led to her being physically handled in Los Angeles. So for example, this was a very big story at the time. Do you guys remember? I believe it was last summer. She was at a restaurant lounge with her friends. Something went down with the coat check at the restaurant lounge. Farrah got a little bit belligerent. She might have had an antichrist attitude with the woman there, and security stepped in, kindly asked Farrah to leave the establishment, and Farrah is rumored to have slapped the security guard, which led to the security guard physically detaining her. That is what she's calling her attack, which again, I don't think it's a fair or accurate representation of what happened. Farrah was the one who wound up facing charges after this quote unquote attack, and not the bouncer. So that should tell you enough about the situation, in my humble opinion. I noticed that she kind of avoided taking responsibility for certain things like that. But she said that outside of being physically detained, she was also hurt by the way that people on social media were quote unquote abusive towards her about the situation, which, listen, that I can totally get with. People on social media can be very mean to Farrah. She could post the most random, mundane thing, about a sunrise, sunset, or whatever, and people will attack her and just see a whole bunch of heinous things towards her. So I definitely do get where she's coming from in regards to that. So Farrah told the podcast host that she couldn't use her arm for a long time after being detained here. Well, she called it attacked, but I'm going to call it what it is, detained. And that she had to go and do physiotherapy for 5 months in order to recover the use of her arm. And so because she was kind of like unable to use the right side of her body, according to herself, she had reached out to her father, Michael, asking him for help, come to LA and help her out with her daughter and all sorts of things. But she was upset because apparently when he came, he just used his time in LA as a quote, getaway from his own life, in Farrah's terms there. So I do wonder what that meant, because Michael is recently married and whatnot. So it does make me wonder, are things not okay in that marriage? Because that is quite interesting. So Farrah opened up about spending about a month in a trauma center in Austin, Texas after this situation. And she tells a story about how she moved from LA to Austin for the third time after this attack. She's like, well, after this detention, she says that she could never live in LA again after this. This was just way too traumatic for her. And so she says one day, because her dad wasn't being very helpful and she still was having issues with her body, she went to the Home Depot parking lot. She found all the men there who were looking for work for that day. So I do see videos about this on TikTok. So it seems to be like people who tend to be undocumented or something potentially, or they go to these places and then they offer work in the Home Depot parking lots. And then people just take them on, one or two or however many they need. And so Farrah says that she took on the whole team. And she's like, yeah, like at that point, I just wanted to get out of there. So they helped me just like take everything down from LA to Austin, Texas, which was really awesome for her. And she says that she feels good being in Austin, Texas, because she was paying about $20,000 per month in rent out of fear. And I think that when she says that she was paying this much in rent out of fear, she's talking about how the apartment that she chose specifically had a lot of security there in order to help her kind of like ease her mind about people potentially being out, out to get her or something like that, which is crazy to me. The fact that she has $20,000 a month to throw away in rent is just wild, like that is just too much. I can't imagine throwing that away every single month when I am a kind of struggling reality TV star, and I'm not talking about struggling financially. I'm talking about struggling to have a regular show, right? She used to have the Teen Mom franchise, but then she burned her bridges over there. And now she doesn't have regular work. So it is quite wild to me that she's able to spend that much money, I guess OnlyFans or whatever it is that she's on, Camp Soda, is paying an awful lot of money, and those molds she's making of her body parts and whatnot. So Farrah does also tell a story about being attacked by two men that same year that she was detained outside of that LA restaurant. So she says that one of the men who attacked her is in jail. So let me put up this screenshot because I believe she's talking about the story that she told on the Howie Mandel podcast. On that podcast, she claimed that a man wanted to STAB her with like gardening tools. And so I believe that's the man who is in jail. And then the other situation, she doesn't open up about. In fact, she didn't say either one. I initially, before I kind of dug through the archives, I thought these were like men who were in the industry. You know how she does like, she's on yachts with random like rich men. I thought these were the situations that she's talking about, because that line of work can be dangerous, right? So I was imagining that, but no, she told a story about a man just wanting to attack her with gardening tools, but there wasn't enough context in this story. I don't know why the man targeted her. Like, is he mentally ill and she happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or did they know each other? Like, what happened there? Like, but either way, it is quite scary. So she says with all the mental turmoil that she was going through in this era, she stopped working and her bosses were worried about her. And I'm like, girl, who you work for? You don't have a job. Like, what bosses? Are you talking about your Johns? Your alleged Johns. You know what I mean? Like, that was quite interesting. Like, she was really, really, I keep saying that she was very eloquent in this interview. Go ahead and give it a listen. Again, it's only like 30 minutes, a whole podcast episode, but Farrah's part of it is like 15, 20 minutes max, but yeah, but like, again, there were certain things where you're like, I don't understand what she's talking about, because if any of you know who she's working for, like what boss would be concerned about her, please do leave their name, number, address in the comment section down below, because I'm genuinely curious. So another thing that Farrah opened up about in this interview was that she suffers from a love addiction. So she, in addition to going through a trauma center, she went through treatment to help cure her love addiction problem. And I would love more information about that, but maybe that's something that's going to be featured on that new show that she says that she's going to be appearing on next year, which is 2024. Now, Farrah does open up a little bit about her family, and I felt like it explained so much, So she told the podcast host that her family doesn't like going to the doctor and they don't believe in like disabilities, right? Which I think they probably don't believe in mental illness either, which I think explains an awful lot. So in that respect, I do have to say 3 cheers to Farrah for being really open about her own battle with all of that. She said that she suffered from chronic anxiety, chronic something else, and then just, the love addiction and just a bunch of other stuff. So the fact that she comes from a family that's very like kind of tight-lipped and ignorant about all of this stuff, and she is speaking out and being really open and just owning everything it is that she's got going on. She opened up about having ADHD as well. I think it's great, and I think that it helps with future generations moving forward. I think it's helpful for her daughter that she is helping to end the stigma surrounding all of this. And I definitely have to give flowers where flowers are due. Now, one thing, it wouldn't be a Farrah interview if she wasn't complaining about somebody, right? So she did have a complaint to make about that show that she's got coming out next year. Did I say already that it's going to be on the A&E network? Because if not, it's going to be on the A&E network. So she complains that one of the producers on the show just wanted to harp on like the sadness in her life and trauma, this, that, and the other. But she kind of fought against that to give herself more of an empowered storyline or presence on the show, which I think is great. If that's the way she feels she wants to present herself, go ahead. All the more power to you, Farrah, right? So she talks a lot about, attacks online, this, that, and the other, which I found to be quite interesting. Again, when you think she's transformed herself just because she's more eloquent, you remember that the same day that she promoted this wonderful interview she did, she also posted this very ignorant message. So this was I don't know what this girl does, but she actually disgusts me as a person. Very, I can't even say very few people, a lot of people, mainly like, random criminals, faceless that I don't even know. I just hear about certain crimes and I'm like, oh, this person's disgusting. So there's this girl, I don't know what her name is, and I don't want to accidentally say the wrong name, but she is like this rapper or this influencer or whatever, but like she just acts like such a wildebeest or something like that. So like she's very disgusting, very uncouth, and just very weird. So this is a video of her. She's in London and she's saying a bunch of nasty things about like all this like gutter butt stuff that she wants to do. She's saying like, oh, like I want to get like plowed in the ass, or like just a bunch of nasty things, right? So it's just her. This one individual woman is very stupid. She's very uncouth and she's just disgusting. So Farrah retweeted on her Instagram stories a video of this one particular girl behaving in a certain kind of way. And guess what she supported as a message? She supported this message that says, Black American culture isn't ghetto, which is a very sarcastic remark about it, right? Like, obviously, the person who says that means to say that Black American culture is absolutely ghetto, which I find, really crazy and ironic coming from Farrah, because, again, through her time in the public, we've seen a lot of like ghetto behavior from Farrah herself, right? Like, for example, she's been arrested a couple of times, right? And so in this time, she had slapped somebody in the face who was working at a restaurant, and then she got detained, and now she wants to play victim about it. We've seen her fight people on reality television. We've seen her screaming and acting a fool on Big Brother, UK version, Celebrity Big Brother and whatnot. Like, she's done a lot of really ghetto things over the years. So for her to like even have the cheek to say anything like that about like other people and to generalize other cultures and whatnot, like, it's just ridiculous to me. And so I definitely want to call attention to that for sure and condemn that sort of behavior, because Farrah's ghetto, her family situation is raggedy, and just like a bunch of, you know what I mean? So it's just no, and see how I say Farrah is ghetto, and like some aspects of her parents and their dynamic there is a little raggedy. It's not a generalization of people of Farrah's ethnicity, because it is individually Farrah who has these tendencies, just like it's individually this lost soul who also has these tendencies as well. But I digress. Anyway, you guys, that was a recap of that little podcast episode that Farrah Abraham appeared on. As usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything. So please do make sure to leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.